Fleur Breckenridge School is closing this October. It was with heavy hearts that the faculty of our elite establishment announced the permanent closing of our beloved Fleur Breckenridge Academy. Over the last 2 years, we have been fighting to keep our school's name from being dragged through the dirt. However, only so much could be done once our reputation was tarnished by one word: murder. Fleur Breckenridge was once highly regarded as one of the most elite schools in the entire country. It boasted an exceptional education with a rigorous curriculum and was made famous by a student body consisting of the sons and daughters of high society. After the events that took place in September of 2014, Breckenridge began seeing a decrease in incoming students. After this last year's incoming class, it became clear that our once illustrious academy would not be able to keep filling seats for the future. On September 22, 2014, sophomore Ivy Litton was found murdered in our school courtyard. Before her body was found, the students were gathered in the auditorium for the Monday morning assembly. After hearing a few words from the headmistress, a video made by the senior class was to be played to officially welcome new students. Instead of the light-hearted greeting the students were prepared for, the video that played was of what looked like a sculpture. The camera zoomed out and panned around the piece before it was eventually made clear that the footage had been recorded on school grounds. The sculpture was of a girl, dressed in the school's uniform holding a rose. Her head faced the ground, so nobody could not see her face at the angles the camera was pointing. The audience fell silent as the video ended with the title screen Cinema 9/22/2014 followed by the text "Please gather in the courtyard." Despite the odd nature of the video, the students remained calm and filed out of the auditorium in an orderly fashion. As they gathered in the courtyard, they were greeted by the sculpture from the video. The only difference, however, was that up close, it was clear this was not a sculpture at all. Hushed whispers turned to cries of terror when a teacher inspected the statue and confirmed that it was the body of 16-year-old Ivy Litton. Litton murder was kept out of the news for some time since the initial cause of death was blood loss from cuts on her wrists. However, her body had been put through the process of plastination, a process used to turn biological specimens into plastic, using a technology where water and fat are replaced with polymers, leading investigators to suspect foul play. All leads sadly turned up dead ends, and Ivy's killer, now referred to as Cinema, was never brought to justice. Throughout the year, female students from different schools also succumbed to the same fate as Ivy. In every case, the victims' wrists were slit, and their bodies were turned into horribly macabre pieces of art. On November 6th of that year, Catherine Keswick, the daughter of the school's wealthiest family, supposedly had an encounter with Cinema and lived to tell the story. "It was like a dream," Keswick answered calmly when interviewed. "We go through life thinking that nothing like this can ever happen to us. And, when it does, it's nearly impossible to process even days later." When asked about what happened, the 16-year-old had this to say: "One moment I was having a conversation with one of my friends outside of the auditorium, and the next I woke up tied to a chair in what looked like a dimly lit cellar. I was approached by a figure in a black coat and gloves wearing an ornate Venetian mask. They appeared to be male, but I could not make out their age due to the lighting. The last thing I remember was being shown a slideshow of all of the other victims. It was like looking through an artist's portfolio. If I didn't know the true nature of the images, I would have found them to be breathtakingly beautiful. After the last slide had passed, everything went black. The next morning, I woke up in a hospital bed." Students were questioned in the weeks following Keswick's encounter, including fellow sophomore Asher Evans. Evans found the unconscious girl outside of the school and immediately called an ambulance. Authorities say that the boy accompanied her to the hospital and stayed with her through most of the night. When questioned, Evans said that he, like many of the other students, had a feeling Keswick was next. "Catherine is a princess," Evans stated. "She's beautiful, smart and kind, not to mention she comes from one of the most respected families in our social circle. Given the victims this maniac has claimed so far, it's not surprising that she would be next on the list." Families began to join authorities in attempting to not only provide relief for those affected, but also aid in the search for Cinema. The only similarity between the victims was that they were all high school females with wealthy and influential backgrounds. 3 months after Keswick's kidnapping, the nature of the crimes began to change. While the murders were fewer and more spread out, the victims were displayed in more complex poses with additional elements added. It was almost as if the murderer had got feedback on their work and began to change certain things to appeal to their critics. Another theory was that Cinema now had an accomplice. This speculation, however, was left out of most forms of media. To this day, Cinema has yet to be caught. We still don't know their goals or motives, or even what age they might be. For all we know, they could have been a student at the very school where this all began. After all, Nobody really knows what goes on behind the gilded gates of the notoriously wealthy.